Hi, everyone. It's Amy from Hagar, and I am thrilled to have Naomi Holland on this Instagram Live today. I will let you, introduce yourself, Naomi, in a quick moment here. Hagar is a global nonprofit organization, and we work to do restoration, community empowerment, and prevention work with human trafficking survivors. And Naomi, as she will explain, has years of experience in anti-trafficking, and I'm thrilled for this conversation today about online safety and how we can keep our families and communities safe all around the world. All right, Naomi, can you give yourself a brief introduction?
Yes, so I'm a mother of two and currently am a pastor's wife in a small rural church. But 25 years ago, I was introduced to the sex trade while traveling in Asia. And then I had the opportunity to live as a house mom for a couple of years in a recovery home. And in that short time, my life was changed. I had 43 roommates in 2 years, and it was those women that really taught me about the sex trade. And then real quick, fast forward, a couple decades later, and I basically saw the men that used to go after these women and the men that owned these women move online and be given like full access to all of our children through their devices. And so that's when I really started speaking out. And very recently I launched Escalate the Conversation so that we can do exactly that and just really we need to escalate this conversation so that we can equip parents, but also empower and teach children how to stay safe online.
Great. So you are in your active work right now an advocate for raising awareness about the impact of pornography and particularly online access to pornography online and its connection to human trafficking. Um, this might be new, for some of Hagar's supporters. We have online sexual abuse cases in our clientele, certainly, but that connection between online exploitation, pornography, and human trafficking, I think it's still a new thread that we're learning about. So maybe you can tell us more about what you know and what you've been learning over the years.
Yeah, basically, we need to realize that pornography is the silent partner of human trafficking. For a very long time, they've been benefiting, they contribute, they build the demand for sexually exploited people. They create in men a desire to do more, to see more, to take their addiction to the next level, and which often causes them to go and seek out somebody that they can purchase and then act out what they've been watching on a live body. And I'm going to focus on men because we do know that women are watching porn, and more than ever. It's up to 30% now. However, they don't tend to act it out. They're not the perpetrators of sexual violence. If in a typical pornographic scene, 88 to 100% of it is violence against 95% is against women. So let me say that again. 88 to 100% of porn scenes contain violence. 95% of it is directed towards women. So that's why we need to realize that for many men, what they're watching is so violent and degrading. And as they build their tolerance and their addiction, they are compelled, not all of them, but many are compelled to seek somebody to act that out on. And that's often when they will go and purchase somebody who is vulnerable, who doesn't have the ability to escape or say no. And then they will act out what they've seen on that person, which is usually a trafficked victim. A couple of other ways that I want to tie this to in is pornography. A third of that is driven by sex trafficking. So if you look at the average scene, it is extremely violent, extremely degrading. Nobody would freely choose that if they had another choice. So you have to assume that these people are there because a lack of choice, the inability to make choices, or the knowledge, they don't have the knowledge to have escaped that situation. And so they are really victims of circumstance. Because pornography is also such a big demand, Like Pornhub gets 193 million visitors a day. You can imagine the ad revenue that they're receiving from all their customers. And so because they have such a large base, so much demand, that drives the supply. So it's just basic economics. Demand drives the supply. And so, to give an example of how it's directly related to human trafficking in this one aspect, right after Russia attacked Ukraine, what's trending on Pornhub? Ukraine girls, Ukraine rape, Ukraine refugees trending on Pornhub. So, and this happens in any big event. It could be a sporting event during the Olympics. You could have seen what's trending on Pornhub. It's all related to that situation. And then the demand is there, and you can guarantee that the people in the middle making money is going to ensure to meet that demand. And so that's where the traffickers work, to go and exploit. Who's at the border receiving refugees? Men who work in the sex trade industry, either, which includes pornography. There, you cannot separate the two. And the other thing that people need to realize is that when they're watching porn, there's 100% no way to tell if the person behind the screen is there by so-called free choice or not. You cannot tell. There are many stories of survivors who were forced, who were tricked, who were trapped, who were physically held, forced, not even, there's no choice. They were just savagely raped, often by more than one man. That is videotaped and then uploaded and distributed like entertainment. That's what pornography is. It's just a videotape of sexual assault. And this one girl in particular, who you can get her interview on Fight the New Drug. It was her name. They have Jane Doe was her title that was given to her. But she was forced, before she could leave, her captors, they said, if you don't give us what you want, you will not leave this apartment. And she was quite convinced that that was the case, that they would not let her leave, or they would take her life if they didn't get what they wanted. And so she had to pretend she was enjoying her violent rape for her own survival so that she could get out and save her life. And so when it looks like the women is enjoying it, it is a complete lie. They're there by survival and force and a lack of other choices. So that's human trafficking. That's pornography. You cannot separate the two. One fuels the other, and the other fuels the other with demand and supply.
So something that we have seen in our work at Hagar is an increase in online sexual exploitation of children. And how is that connected into this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like our children are being groomed by our culture. So let's just look at the average time that youth are spending online. So it's about 6 hours a day now outside of schoolwork. So that's 6 hours of scrolling or video gaming. I guarantee you in that time, they're going to run across pornography without a doubt. There's 450 million websites out there dealing with porn. So the chances of them stumbling upon it are high, especially we know on social media. It's full of porn, links to porn sites, as well as video games, lots of pornographic type content in it, and then links directly from your PlayStation to Pornhub. And so they will stumble upon it, they will see it, and they will get desensitized to pornography, to nudes, to naked women, to overly sexualized material. So that's step one. They're on it a lot, they're seeing it, and they're being desensitized to it. I guess that's three. And then what happens is on those same sites where the children are spending copious amounts of time, you can guarantee predators are there. Predators prey, P-R-E-Y, where children play. And so guarantee they're there playing with the kids, chatting, liking, following, commenting, DMing, building a rapport, building their trust, getting those kids to know them and trust them online. So that's what's happening, called grooming. And what the predators are doing is that they are testing the waters. They're looking for vulnerabilities. What does this child not have at home? What is it that they're missing? What is it that they're looking for? And it's often love, acceptance, affirmation, to be seen, to be valued, things that all children should be receiving at home, but we know that they're not. And unfortunately, children from more traumatic backgrounds, more vulnerable backgrounds are the ones that are getting this the least. And if that need is not being met at home, they will find it elsewhere. And the predators are waiting to fill that void. So that is what then leads to that predator or trafficker. So I'm going to tell you two different situations. One is either that online friend is eventually going to ask to move that conversation over to usually Snapchat, where photos so-called disappear. And then they're continuing grooming, building that friendship. And many kids think that this is their boyfriend, or this is, most likely their boyfriend, right? And even it could be the profile of a female, and behind that profile could be, a man of any age, you name it, any ethnicity, any economic status. And so then the ask for a nudes, the sexualizing of the conversation, and then turning it into more sexual conversation, and then sharing or trading nudes. Remember that predator can also be using another person's profile. So they could be sending nudes pretending that they're a 14-year-old boy, when in reality, that's somebody else's account that they have hacked. So that happens. And then right now, there's an alarming number of under 10-year-olds that are being tricked to perform sexually in front of their camera in their bedroom. That is sex trafficking. So let me just pause here for a second and explain the definition of sex trafficking. Is when a sex act with a minor is commercialized, or when a sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion. So when these children send that nude, and maybe it's an exchange for, it could be for money, it could be for gaming dollars, but that is sex trafficking, and highly likely that that predator is also selling and resharing all of those pictures and videos. In fact, they say the average nude of a child is shared 400,000 times on the internet. So kids, don't think it's disappearing. It doesn't disappear. There's always screen record, screenshots. It does not disappear. So that was one situation, the ask for a photo or video. And again, it's happening a lot, and children are being taught to do this. The second thing would be by a trafficker, and the ask to meet. The ask to meet up. And we've seen this happen so much in our small area or rural area. So it's happening everywhere. Rural Canada, it's happening. Guarantee you it's happening in every zip code in the States as well. And so this child, usually at this time, maybe tween, maybe young teen, who isn't getting love and affection at home, finds a boyfriend online. And now kids think dating online is how it's done. They don't know how to have a conversation face to face, but they'll send a nude online, no problem. And so that's what's happening already. They're building a relationship, and this girl's going to think this is her online boyfriend. Then online boyfriend is going to suggest a meetup so they can meet in person. And this just happened last summer, two different situations close to us. One, the young girl went to meet the guy. The police somehow happened to be there, very random, and stopped him. He was 24. He was American. Not that that matters. 24-year-old picking up, I think she was then 14 or 15 years old, but she knew she was meeting him for a sexual encounter. If that had proceeded, a couple of things could have happened. One, she could have been savagely sexually exploited, abused. And then most likely that abuse would have been recorded, uploaded to Pornhub or other pornographic websites where that person would make money. Or the other thing is that that young girl or boy would be taken to an apartment or a hotel and then sold to the lineup of men waiting to purchase that unsuspecting, had no idea young person, which is their entry into the sex trade. Or they could disappear and then be physically trafficked across the country. And so those are two forms that are happening that start in the bedroom and start on video games or social media.
Oh my goodness. So, in this, at Hagar's an international organization. We work across Asia Pacific, across 7 different countries in Asia Pacific. So many of the stories that our supporters are familiar with, of course, are coming from those regions in which we do frontline programmatic work. And so human trafficking and these stories of exploitation, abuse, recovery, et cetera, can feel quite far away. But what I'm hearing from you is it can be actually as close as, like, the internet connection and the phone
Yes.
that my child's on.
Yes.
Um, can you help us understand how it's not just an away over there issue? It's something that's far closer to home.
With the internet and with the connectivity and with all of us giving our children internet connected devices far too early and without any training and without the safeguards, we are giving the world access to our children. And because they're in their bedroom, they think that they're safe. And again, because they've been desensitized by our overly sexual culture, a third of kids don't see any problem with sending a nude. Once that nude is sent out there, it can be used for so many different things. It can be sold. It can be used for more bullying. We're seeing huge cases of sextortion, which is growing globally, where so many young boys have driven, feeling like they have to take their life because they're threatened with how that nude is going to be shared across their friend group and sports club and school. Like it's like it really is a globally connected world today in good ways and in very, very harmful ways. And these predators are trafficking vulnerable children. Well, actually, all children. They're targeting all children with an internet device who have not been educated, informed, and who have parents that are not heavily involved and aware of the dangers.
So with that, so I'm a mom of 3 daughters. My oldest daughter is nearly 14, almost 12, almost 10. We're right in that zone of working through screen time balance, of the begging for access to devices. I know I'm not alone in this. Um, what what is your recommendation? What is your advice, not just for people like me, but everyone else in this space where
Yeah.
we're really wrestling with it? What can we do?
Yeah. You know, ideally, we all knew this before we had children. And so I would say if you haven't had kids yet, like listen up. You want to start right away from the get-go. And it's really creating a home environment and creating a culture. I'm talking a family culture that is countercultural, of a low screen family. The minute you start giving out devices and giving your toddler an iPad and stuff, like, welcome to your battle. Welcome to your battle for the next 18 years. Like, so number one, delay is truly the way. Little children under 5 do not need any access to the internet at all. If you look at the top researchers, the doctors, like they're all begging parents, don't give your little children a device. And I'm not even talking about the predators and the dangers out there. That's just for their healthy brain development. And can I say natural brain development? You give them a screen, you will interrupt the natural brain processes and their ability to connect human to human, face to face, eye to eye. So I would say under 5, no internet connected activity. And that will sound extreme, but what we're facing with our children now is so extreme. We have to push back, unless, and FaceTime with parents and grandparents do not count. Watching a movie DVD together do not count in that. It is the high dopamine, immediate reward, swiping, tagging, like that stuff is rewiring our children's brain. So read Anxious Generation, and let's all do the 4 norms that he's suggesting, which is no screens, no smartphones in school, no social media before 16, no what was the other one? More playtime, and I think no lower screens in schools, something like that. So that's key. And then as they get older, of course, they're going to be asking more. You just have to be aware of how addictive all the devices are and all the apps are. And once you introduce it to your kids, it's just a battle of their brain, the brain and dopamine against these highly programmed apps. And so it will be a battle. You have to have safeguards in place before you give them a screen. But when you think about giving your child a screen, it doesn't have to be a smartphone right away. Like, there are so many other options now. So I would say delay as long as possible. When you feel they need a way to contact you, then you start with a flip phone or a bark phone, or we're looking at Pinwheel in Canada. So there are other ways. Don't just follow the crowd. Like, that's how we got into this mess, and we have to undo it. We have to turn the ship around. So really start slow, change your house culture. Unfortunately, that starts with parents. We have to role model what we're going to ask of them. Once you give them their own smart device, well, you shouldn't be giving them one until they are aware and until parents are prepared to have hard conversations about what to do when you see pornography. They are going to see porn. No matter what, they will see it, whether it's on their device or their friend's device. But when they have their own device, you're asking them with an undeveloped brain to resist clicking and looking at things when their body is just so curious, especially if they have social media. And social media to teen boys feeds them so much pornographic content. It doesn't feed that to us. It will feed that to our teen boys without a doubt. How are they not supposed to look? How are they not supposed to swipe? I think it's physically impossible. And so once you give them this stuff, it's really, really hard. And they have to have a reason to resist. And unless they have that reason already before they're given the phone, they're not going to resist. And so really talking through, understanding and helping them understand what their values are. And as they get older, I'm talking like 13, they have to understand what pornography is, which is violence against women. None of these women want to be there. And what they're seeing on the screen is a total lie. It's fabricated, it's staged. The actors are physically, surgically, chemically enhanced. And like, it's just a total lie, but it's addictive, and it will sink claws into their brain, and pretty hard to break free from that. So delay, and then educate, lots of conversations. And the big thing for parents who have lost children due to social media pressures, and even pressures on video games, they would say, of course you have all these conversations. Of course, parents, you get educated. Then they would say this, but you must tell your children, but if you do see it, if you do click on it, if you are shown it, if you do send a nude, you come talk to us and we will fight with you. We'll fight for you. Like, they cannot feel like they have to deal with this alone. That's when things get worse.
So, I mean, this conversation can feel really overwhelming. I'm like a little bit on the verge of tears, it's and it's dark. But as an advocate in this space, what hopeful words of affirmation and encouragement can you give to all of us right now?
Well, I'm glad you are responding that way, because that is the correct response. Like, this is a call to action to all parents. Like, we have to, first of all, just hit pause in our home. Like there's so much outside of our home we cannot control, but we can still control our home. Our children need us to protect their mental health. They need us to give them 8 to 10 hours of uninterrupted sleep every night. Like I am here speaking on behalf of your child's future. I'm begging you for them because they don't have the words or the knowledge to do it themselves. But what you're fighting for is their future happiness, their future ability to have relationship with another human being that's healthy, that isn't exploitive or violent or degrading. That's what porn's teaching our kids, is how to abuse another person, not how to love them. And so the hope is our children. Like we fight for them. We're fighting for their future. We're fighting for our grandchildren. If our kids are addicted to their phones when they're parenting and they're raising their children, we're in big trouble, big trouble. And so that's why, like right now, pause, reassess your family. How are you doing things? Moms and dads, what are you role modeling? What can you change? How can you pursue your children? Can you make, well, one, a no-brainer is absolutely no screens in the bedroom at night, ever, ever, ever. There's no reason. Buy them an alarm clock. No screens at meal times, ever. Practice conversation. You need to read their body language. What happened during the day? You need to be available. Get rid of screens around the supper time. And then, the reality is we're all too busy. And I think we're using screens to cope. And so we're just giving our kids screens in the car, in the grocery store cart, at the sports game, because they're watching, their older brother's third game of the day. Like, hokey dino, like, we need to slow down so children can be children and they don't need to be escaping or coping or numbing on screens. And I think for parents, I just want to challenge them to think about the behaviors that you see in your children right now with screen time. Are you happy with them? Are those the same behaviors you want to see in them in 10 years? And what about when they graduate from high school and they move out on their own? Do you want them to do the same behaviors now when they move out on their own and they have no time or no accountability, no parent, no filter? They can do anything they want, watch anything they want. They can watch porn all night long. Like, the behavior that we're allowing our children to create now is the behavior they're going to have when they're on their own. And so if we want them to have boundaries, if we want them to have respect for the other gender, if we want them to cherish their bodies and their mental health, we start now. We've got this small window of time, such a small window, and we are failing our children by letting them lose 6 hours a day on screens, while also putting them at risk. But also they're just numbing out, they're losing their childhood. And so we just need to stop, and we need to reassess, and we need to have a family meeting, make a family plan. Everyone needs to be on board. And then, you know what? It's going to be hard. There's going to be, if your kids have been on screen 6 hours a day, there's going to be a detox time. And so you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready to fill that time with something else. And that's where we come in. We come in with creativity, with adventure, with something fun, something different. The brain loves novelty. So we better be ready. Maybe it is a trip. Maybe it's, something wild that the family's never done before without screens. And then moms, we can be the worst. If you do that trip, if you plan that adventure, don't be recording it for your Instagram live. Like, buy a camera, stop using your kids as content, and be fully present. I guarantee you 30 days you have a different child.
Oh, these are hard words, Naomi, but they are, I mean, we've witnessed this in our own family. It was just spring break in our little spot here in Canada. And we literally just had a family meeting over the weekend and said, we've got to make some changes. And I think the hardest part, one of the biggest challenges as a parent, is realizing the behavior I've been modeling with my own phone. some of those addictive qualities and tendencies that I see in myself. I'm getting dopamine hits when I'm on my phone constantly, and 100% I am. But that realization that kids are catch more, like they catch more of that learning than
Yeah,
they necessarily than any other way, So what
yeah,
I'm modeling is more effective as a parenting
yes,
tool and teacher, than the things
yes,
that I even say out loud. So that's been a really big
yeah.
challenge over the past few weeks, really thinking that one through.
Well,
But yeah, we
good for
literally
you.
just had a family meeting a few days ago. Didn't go great, because
Oh,
these are hard changes. These are hard changes to make, and when you're 9, 11, 13, you can't see the future, in the
yeah,
same way that an
yeah,
adult can.
yeah.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder. I think another, these things are affecting our kids here in North America, but it's absolutely affecting families around the world too. And our online behavior here in North America does can end up being exploitative in alternative contexts all over the globe. Um, I do have one more question for you, Naomi, and it is related to some of the misconceptions that you run into. Is that one of them? That if it's only happening here, it's not affecting anyone else? What are some of the things that you run into? The questions that you get asked?
Yeah, I think with pornography and the sex trade, there's always that misconception that they chose it or they're there by
Mm,
because it's easy money, which are complete lies. I think they're
yeah,
lies that are fueled by the industry itself, so that we feel better about not doing anything about it. So that would be one. The average age of entry into the sex trade is 13 years old in Canada and the US. No 13-year-old chooses to be raped multiple times a day by violent, strange men. It is there when there's a lack of other choice and no one there to protect them. So that's number one. That is a misconception. Yes, and that pornography doesn't hurt anyone. It is destroying lives on both sides of the screen. Nobody wants to be doing what is happening. So many of them are dependent on drugs and alcohol. So many in the industry in the porn industry take their own lives. Or there's those that are trafficked that just have no power, no ability but to endure. So it's destroying the lives on the other side of the screen. And then on our side, we're just having huge, like so many people are addicted and it's destroying their lives. They hate themselves. They're full of shame. They're driven into secrecy. It only gets worse if they have no one to talk to. And so, unfortunately, their addiction grows and grows and grows. And like they don't recognize themselves anymore. And I really feel for these people, men and women. Women tend to internalize, so they will copy that role of victim. Again, like I said, men are acting out in crazy extreme ways more and more and more. And then sadly, because we know our children are seeing it, we're seeing a huge rise in child on child harmful sexual behavior where children are copying what they've seen on porn in the classroom, on the school bus, at summer camp, like with their siblings. Like we're just seeing so many devastations of exposure to pornography. And so those are the misconceptions. Those are the things we have to break. We have to just really realize how much porn harms the consumer and those that are being used. And our culture, for some reason, is really, I guess not for some reason, I know why, it's because it's so lucrative, but our culture is really promoting pornography and it's glorified in our shows and in our music industry, in movies and all over social media. Porn is really seen as female empowerment, and I can sleep with as many guys as I want, and it's being sold as empowerment, and girls are buying into it. And we can see that with the growth of OnlyFans, but they're buying a lie. All of it leads to slavery. It all leads to a lack of self-love and self-respect. And basically, it's slavery again, like modern day slavery. We're buying human beings once again. And I just don't think that that's the world that we want to leave our children. And is that the life we want to look back on for ourselves as well? Is that, I bought and sold women online? Like, I really feel for both the consumer as well as those being used on the other side of the screen. So we need to talk about it. I encourage anyone who's watching, if they have a porn addiction, if they're not sure, try to stop for 30 days. If you can't, you may have an issue. Talk to somebody. You're not alone, guarantee it. Guarantee it, people who are also struggling silently. And so the more that we can normalize the conversation of recovery, the more we can help each other. And I have to say, I'm really encouraged by so many men that are speaking out nowadays about their own victory with pornography. They're very bold. They have such a wonderful voice. They're hosting podcasts. Like, I'll mention a couple, like Man Within podcast is so good. Well, of course, Fight the New Drug is great for sharing people that have won their victory. There's just so many people speaking out. Jay Stringer, his work is amazing. And so these are men that have overcome, and now they're helping other men. And so there is recovery. The brain is so beautifully made that it can recover, it can rebuild, it can rewire. But it takes time away from those devices. So same with social media, same with video games, same with pornography, highly addictive. But if you give yourself a break, time apart, your brain can rewire. And very quickly, if I can just comment on what you said about with your kids, the big difference with our children and with us is that I remember when I got a phone, I was mid 30s. Like, do you remember when you got your first smartphone?
Yeah, I do. And it was
Your
only 15 years ago. So
See, your
yeah.
your brain was already developed. You already had the breaks. So we had developed brains, and we're still finding these addictive. And so when we're giving these addictive devices to our children with undeveloped brains, they don't have a chance. And so that's all we're doing, is delaying that gratification. You're buying their body time to finish developing, and their brain to develop, and also their understanding of the world, their worldview to develop without the influence of these harmful messages from online. So it can be a battle, parents, but it all depends on how you present it, right? Number one is pursue your children, build relationship, invest in them, be available to them, and find non-screen activities to do together. Make it fun. And the pull of the phone won't be as strong.
Naomi, this has been so good, so educational for all of us at Hagar. Thank you so much for your time. We are linking the Escalate the Conversations handle and website and resources in the caption, and so many more opportunities through Naomi's work to learn more and become more educated about this. But I just want to thank you so much for your encouragement and your advocacy, and thank you for being with us and teaching us today.
You're welcome. You can do it, parents.
All right, thanks, Naomi. All right.